And you are live.
Okay, House Education, Wednesday, March 26, 2025. We are back discussing strike all amendment to H 454. We are on page 29 of 35, state level governance. And I think this is probably where I should really reiterate, this is just on the table for discussion and decisions. But it is not.
Before we go on,
Yeah, we are on. Oh, on forward.
on forward,
Yes.
can we go back to the school-wide calendar thing,
Yes,
just for one more second?
Yeah.
What if we weren't asking the Agency of Ed to recommend the calendar? What if we were asking our folks from the field to make recommendations to the AOE that then they could forward on to the State Board of Ed?
I'm not sure. So what is the process for implementing a statewide school calendar? Like who ultimately?
Beth St. James Office of Legislative Council, whoever you decide, there is no process right now.
Right now, we have it as,
It seems like those involved in the CBA, School Boards Association, Vermont NEA, that those entities, those players might be the best to put forth some ideas into a statewide calendar first.
I might suggest an alternative to that to say, in consultation, we could say in consultation with the Secretary of Education shall develop and publish a statewide calendar. I say that because I'm not sure they want that job.
What if we ask them?
I think ultimately it's,
Somebody suggested that, where was that in consultation with the AOE do it in consultation.
There's language for that for the data systems.
okay, so
It would
maybe,
need to be that.
It might be a silly question. I just, I'm wondering, in the statewide calendar, by the end of the year, once you got to June, it would naturally be a little different throughout the state, right? Like, and that would just be okay.
so I don't know, but that's why we're gonna have the experts in the field at the AOE work through this.
Okay.
But you're saying like if there are snow
Well,
days?
yeah, like we always get at least like 5 snow days.
I would think that a statewide calendar would have contingency days
Absolutely.
put on the end of it,
Okay.
so that we all end in the
Would have
same
to.
place theoretically.
Where did you say, did you say that there was consultation with NEA on data systems?
No,
No.
educators and administrators on the data systems.
Which makes sense.
I really don't think the AOE understands what's involved, is what I'm gonna say.
Yes, I can appreciate that.
We have
Uh,
leadership at the top that really, they've not been in the classroom. They don't understand. They've not negotiated a contract between school
Yeah.
boards and teachers.
There's a reason why we've never had one, and that's because it is a challenge.
It is.
They have asked for this task. In H 454, I'm frankly inclined to let them give it a shot in consultation. And I think that, I mean, there are certain existing roadblocks to doing it that they either understand perfectly well right now or will understand. And those roadblocks won't necessarily change, but it'll be,
Could we
they're gonna
create,
have to work it out.
could we create a subcommittee on the commission on the public educate? You've got players in that commission that could suggest
Because
something.
after years on this committee, this is not a job anybody wants, except the AOE has expressed interest in doing it. And I think that if we task them with it, with the requirement that they work with the field, they may come back to us and say, we have been unsuccessful. But I think it's a good benchmark for the AOE to work toward. They want to. It's gonna require a significant level of cooperation with the field. So I think it's an excellent opportunity. for
Experiment?
them- Opportunity for them, because they will not be able to just unilaterally impose a calendar for all of the reasons you have brought up.
Well, maybe we should slip in consultation with.
Yeah, no, I think we absolutely should. I mean, I think that would happen anyway, but let's be explicit about it.
Do you want?
Yeah.
I just think that the AOE has the full capacity and ability to do this. I just want to put that on, just on the table here. I think they do have the ability and the wherewithal to do it. So I think they can come up with a statewide
It's
calendar.
never happened.
Never happened. I have
I have no-
faith in them.
That's no casting aspersions on the
It
current
isn't.
AOE at all. It is just that it is incredibly tricky. This collective bargaining agreements and all of that. Yeah.
If it was up to the sole discretion of the AOE, I mean, they wouldn't be allowed to do things like suddenly say, oh, we're gonna give you 20 PD days instead of 10, right? Like,
All of that is negotiated contracts.
okay,
I mean, you could break a contract by paying for it.
What they'll have to do is examine all of the contracts statewide.
right. But what I mean is there will still be like union people there to negotiate with them. They couldn't unilaterally be like, we're done negotiating.
They can present something and then the unions can
This is,
say,
the
no.
negotiations are not between the AOE and teachers. It is between
Right, and so
school
that's-
boards and teachers.
and they're binding.
That's where I'm getting confused is because as Representative McCann is saying, like, we need someone there who is gonna negotiate, but what we're also saying is let's let the AOE do it. So where's the
It's-
negotiation
It's
piece?
not so much negotiation that if we use that term in terms of like contracts,
Yeah,
it is,
Coordination.
it is, how do you find a path forward that can both meet the requirements of collective bargaining agreements? That's right. And the needs of creating a statewide calendar. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not opening a contract.
I'd like to be on the record stating that I agree with Representative Two completely that the AOE, the current AOE has, I believe, the ability to do this. And to say otherwise is misguided.
I don't know the answer to that, but they have a desire to it. And
Yeah,
Right.
that's
Desire.
There you go.
I'm okay with it. Yeah, I mean, they're gonna have to, it's not gonna be anyway, but we can make the explicit about it. So, in consultation with, educators in the field.
Okay.
All right.
So we're moving to page 29. State level governance. Section 14, line 12 is the intent section for this bucket. It is the intent of the General Assembly to ensure that the State Board of Education is the independent, transparent, and public-facing body for public education, and to ensure the board maintains its ability to provide an important outlet for the public to engage in the rulemaking process and regularly provide public comment regarding the state of Vermont's public education system. Section 15 is taken from Rep. McCann's bill, and I forget the number on it.
Me too.
But it is making amendments to section 161 of Title 16, which is the State Board of Education appointment section.
179.
179, thank you. It takes the state board from 10 members currently to 11 members. The 2 student members would remain and be appointed by the governor. And then there would be the 8, then the governor serves as a, or the secretary rather serves as a, in an ex officio role. So then the other 8 members currently are all appointed by the governor, and this bill is suggesting a different appointment process.
Before we get there, the remaining 8 voting members shall require the advice and consent of the Senate shall be appointed as follows. Do they all, has that generally been the case anyway? I've always wondered about when advice and consent of the Senate comes in.
They're all, so currently all members are appointed by the governor with advice and consent of the Senate.
So why do we have it?
So this is changing it to student members,
Okay,
so. Because we've got different categories
got
now,
it. Okay. thank
so
you.
I
Sorry.
kept the advice and consent piece. One member, so currently, the requirements to be on the state board are. Let's see. Demonstrated commitment to ensuring quality education for Vermont students. And to the extent possible, the member shall represent the state's geographic, gender, racial, and ethnic diversity. This bill, or this section, proposes to add more specification to the roles or experience that each member would bring with them. So one member would be a public school central office administrator appointed by the Superintendent's Association. One member would be a public school administrator appointed by the Principals Association. One member would be a public school board member appointed by the School Boards Association. One member would be a public school teacher appointed by the NEA. One member would be an independent school administrator or teacher appointed by VISA, the Independent Schools Association. And then there would be 3 at-large members, one appointed by the governor, one appointed by the speaker, and one appointed by the Senate Committee on Committees. The role, this section does not change the role of the state board in any way. It's just the appointment process. And anywhere you see the governor struck, it was the governor having to make appointments. And now because we have multiple appointing authorities, we're just replacing that language there. The terms are staying the same. And then there's a transition section we can go over. But again, this is just the appointment process. It's not changing the duties or the responsibilities of the state board.
All right, so just today, there are 8 members plus 2 students. Is that right?
There are
11 members,
No, there are 10
10.
members.
10. Okay, so we go to 11, that seems.
Yep.
Everybody tells us we should be doing odd numbers. 2 are students. That leaves 9, the secretary being one of those. And then currently, the rest, even though I know we're over by 1, are all appointed by the governor with the advice and consent of the Senate.
Correct.
Okay. This would change who's appointing people.
Correct.
To this. Yeah, please.
I am not a fan of this, at all. I don't know what we're trying to solve by doing this, other than having a gripe with the governor. This is the State Board of Education, much like many other boards within the state, are a function of the executive branch. The executive branch appoints these because the executive branch is accountable to all Vermonters, much similar to how the PUC is appointed, the Green Mountain Care Board, Fish and Wildlife, many other boards. I don't know why we would entertain this. I would really want to hear from the governor's council before we try to even move on this, because I don't know how this would fit in with our state statutes, if this would be okay. So I just my thoughts, my 2 cents.
Kate, do you want to talk about some of your reasoning behind this? I think you
Sure,
you
I
basically
mean,
did so in
I
when
did.
you presented the bill
I
originally.
did.
Just give us a reminder.
Reminder being that, if we're asking, the state board to do rulemaking on education, it seems like those making the rules should be from the field. So a reappointment process where the field is recommending individuals to the board, would ensure that those in education are making the rules for education.
Okay, let me give Aaron a shot, and you be up next.
I have a question for you, Beth, I think. I'm a little confused now. I've struggled to understand state board versus AOE since I got here. Long dreamt of the plan Dan French and Tammy Colby were gonna come to figure it all out, and then we had pandemic. Is the state board, based on what Chief just said, I thought the state board was an independent, though appointed by the governor as an independent body, is not an arm of the executive branch. I'm a little, I just want to check my own understanding.
Sorry, go ahead.
So this is I think what everyone's dancing around are the separation of powers, issues here. And while not prepared to speak on it on the fly at 4:41, am more than happy to speak on it after preparing. This is constitutional, what we are suggesting. I do not.
This is all stirring a memory of
Yeah.
this conversation
Yeah,
having taken
we've
place
had
a couple of years ago.
I think there are various different legal opinions out there.
Yeah.
I am not prepared to change my legal opinion based on anything I've heard or read in the past. And I'd be happy to give you a stronger presentation than this right now. We have three branches of government. You are the legislature, the courts are the judicial branch, and the executive branch is everyone basically else that's executing the laws out there. The state board is part of the executive branch in that it is not part of the judicial branch, it is not part of the legislative branch, but they are also not an arm of the state, of the AOE, if you will. You have other examples of kind of independent boards that are out there that may be attached to an executive branch agency or department for administrative purposes, et cetera, but that they act independently or they have an independent role. So I think characterizing the state board as independent is accurate. Did I answer your question?
Potentially.
Yeah.
We will certainly have
Yeah.
further research on this.
Mhm.
And it's all jogging in memory of having had this conversation.
This
probably
has come up many
4
times.
years ago.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I would
It predated you,
Yeah,
actually.
I think
I would
so.
agree with Rep too, but also just, we haven't taken any testimony on this at all. And, we currently rely on testimony from members of the State Board of Education all the time, so apparently the members that are on there now who have been appointed are worthy enough to give testimony to us on how things should operate, so I don't understand why we'd be changing things.
Yeah, this was put on, because a member had provided a proposal and it's for discussion. Yeah, good, Casey, go ahead.
Yeah, and I just want to, the point I was making is rulemaking is a function of the executive branch. And the governor who's making these appointments is accountable to the people that elected the governor. The members on this board are not accountable to any elected or any constituency. So that's why I would caution away from this. But my real main point would be that this is rulemaking is a function of the executive branch, and I wouldn't want to mess with that. And I'd want to hear from maybe legal counsel from the administration.
I think we have, yes. Yeah.
I'm wondering though, if there is also something to be said for not being accountable to voters and making the rules for education, because we're not making them I'm not saying not held accountable, but like, you're not making them to try and get reelected to that. You're not making them to try and please a governor. You're making them because they are sound educational rules, and we want them to be consistent.
Yeah, this is more, I think, about the appointment process.
Right, no, I understand that. I just, I think depoliticizing the rules is a really smart thing to do.
Jenna?
Yeah, I was just go to sort of follow on with what Leanne was saying. I think we did hear Dr. Colby come in earlier this year in the committee and talk pretty compellingly about how the role of the state board is to be the public facing entity for public education. So I think I understand sort of the drive to be really intentional about how public education is represented on the state board. And I guess one other thing for us to think about is I don't know all that much about the history of the state board, but I sort of suspect that in various iterations, all these folks have been and are represented, and just being a little more intentional about it makes, think it's worth discussing.
Yes, Emily.
So I would echo that. I remember during the testimony, when we had this conversation with members of the state board, that they used the term neutral and independent board. And given that the students of our state are our clients and are core on this as neutral and independent and depoliticized using Representative Harple's language. It seems very appropriate to me, especially given, you know, the challenges we're going through right now. And I'm going to just repeat something I've said ever since you have all heard me say it, but I'm just going to repeat it again. Regardless of rulemaking being part of the executive branch, I still believe rulemaking does belong here with a neutral, independent board.
We have, I think, probably a far more sort of fundamental issue here. Casey's comments is jogging my memory of having had, frankly, an attorney from the administration testify before the House Education Committee. It could have been as much as 6 years ago.
Yeah.
And my recollection of it was strongly consistent with sort of the summation that Casey gave. And I'm not saying this to have an opinion one way or the other. I'm just saying what the history of this particular question has been. So I just put that out there. But I do have a question, Beth, for you. So we had a bill last year along the same lines that Senator Gulick, and then there was a matching one in the House that talked about the governor still appointing most of the members, and then just several members being appointed by the speaker at the Committee on Committees. And I'm just curious to know if there are any other state boards that operate or are appointed in a hybrid way like that as well.
There are, actually, the State Ethics Commission is actually appointed by a process similar to what is proposed in the strike-all amendment before you. They are appointed by the Ethics Commission members. And if it wasn't clear in my answer about the state board is part of the executive. Regardless of who appoints members to them. The Ethics Commission is composed of 7 members, 1 member appointed by the Supreme Court, 1 member appointed by the League of Women Voters, 1 member appointed by the Vermont Society of Certified Public Accountants, 1 member appointed by the Board of Managers of the Vermont Bar Association, 1 member appointed by the Society for Human Resource Management, 1 member appointed by the Speaker of the House, 1 member appointed by the Senate Committee on Committees. The governor actually doesn't make any appointments on the State Ethics Commission. And I'm just reading the law here, so I'm sure that there's something that I'm missing. But there are other, I don't have them off the top of my head, but I'd be happy to come back to you. But there are other boards that have either currently or have had kind of a hybrid appointment of House, Senate, governor.
Yeah.
So first, right, so the board is, as it is organized currently, has been around since a previous administration had made the change to having the OE Board of Education, correct?
Well, there's been a Board of Education.
Well, I mean,
since
so
forever.
in this iteration, let me rephrase, in this iteration of how they sit, the two, right? We didn't have the Agency of Education before, now we do with Board of Ed, right? So in that time, it does not appear to me, I haven't heard anyone talk about it and what I can find on it. The board has never been, since then, it has never not been, I should say, neutral, independent, or politicized. So, and I've heard members of our committee talk about how they would prefer the board over the AOE in general. So to me, that's a testament to how the system as it is has been working very well. And I think we're looking to change something that we're looking to change it for change just because it's an opportune time to stuff into something to make that change. I do agree with Representative Tu and Representative Taylor on all of their points, and that, like, sitting here, I haven't been here forever, and I think that they're doing exactly what everybody wants them to do extremely well. And they're doing it under the same way we've been choosing them for quite some time. Like, I think it's just change it because, oh, why not do it now while we have this bill that we can do that?
Go ahead, Emily.
Well, I just want to make sure it's clear that I'm not coming at this from change, just for change's sake, because there's a opportunity here. That's not I don't know about anybody else, but it's not me. I also would say that we've heard testimony, we've taken testimony even this year that does say that while Beth can correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't believe the board itself changed in its makeup or appointment when the change happened in 2012. But who the secretary answered to, Commissioner before answered to the state board when 2012 happened, the secretary answered to the governor. And there, we had testimony that that was the change, and we had testimony that that was a significant change. I'm just saying what I heard. One of the other things I just wanted to mention, and again, I'm going to go back to students and making sure it is critically important to me that we have a powerful, strong education system in the state of Vermont. And students are always going to be at the center of it for me. The makeup of this state board, to me, absolutely needs to be broad. That's, I feel, what we're trying to get at here. It also should be regional. And that isn't written in here, but I, and I'm not asking for language change, but I think that that's also a very important part, because living in a quite rural part of the state, it's important to me that that part is represented. And I don't really know whether I'm not.
Is that?
I don't think it's part.
That they can all be from like.
They could all be, and I guess I'm adding that as a concern of mine on top of some of my other concerns, because what I'm trying to do is empower an independent and neutral board to represent the full state in its work.
I might suggest, I think we have a bit of there's a fundamental issue that probably we need to get testimony on. First, yes.
This could be unpopular, but there is an army of educators in this state who lack confidence in Vermont's education governance and have for a long time. And doing nothing isn't going to change that. But having a state board that's independent and non-political and full of people from the field would go a long way in boosting confidence for those who serve in public school.
I totally appreciate the opinions, but I just think we probably would start with testimony as to sort of the constitutionality of an executive branch, arm of the executive branch that is not sort of appointed by, and I always say it because I know we've had testimony on this years ago that was frankly fairly clear cut. Representative Brady.
I'm trying to read, or can you give us the build up? I'm trying to read the language from the one that you pulled up, Beth, because I'm interested in that. I'm looking at some quick comparisons of other states, and it's all over the map. A lot of governor appointments,
It's S203 from last year.
S203, thank you. I should know that number. Split across with the legislature. Some are elected at large in the state. So there's clearly a variety of structures out there. I'm interested in, I think that the conversation around the kind of independence and public facing nature of the board is really important. And I'm thinking especially about the other piece that's in this bill about state graduation standards that are, that's a hugely really important fundamental part of our system. And so having a really independent public facing state board to do that well is really important. I'm a little concerned about some of the language here. I don't know if it's appropriate, I used to be on the CVSD school board. I am a teacher. I am a member. By contract, have to be of my union. I couldn't be on the school board in Colchester where I teach, like that would be a conflict of interest. So I'm almost worried. I don't know if there might be in this kind of membership construct, some potential conflicts of interest of what the board is ultimately overseeing. I might be reading that wrong, but I guess I am interested in other structures that are maybe not a complete change from the way we do it now, but potentially could lead us towards a path incrementally, like the rest of this bill, towards a little bit depoliticized or like equally politicized on all sides kind of board that everybody has, that I'm very concerned about what we hear again and again and again about, sort of instability in our system, and the more political it is, the more it's tied to, regardless of the governor. And I think we've heard clear testimony about this. That switch from department to agency has just, in and of itself, this is not about Republican or Democrat, made it more political, because it is then the agency is an arm of the administration, and it makes education, which has to be stable, more susceptible to the winds. And so I'm interested in any small incremental steps towards reducing some of that turbulence in our system. And so I need to reread S-203. I remember talking with Senator Gulick about it last session. I have some concerns about this construct. But I am.
So I'm gonna do a few more minutes of discussion on this, but with I'd like to give Beth the opportunity to confer with folks sort of about that whole executive branch constitutionality.
I don't need to confer with anyone. I'm happy to give you my legal opinion.
Okay,
I just would need to refresh my memory. I'm not prepared to do that right now,
Right.
but,
So- I think we'll also, as I record, in the past, when this came up, and this is all coming back to me now, we had an attorney from the administration as well.
I don't think our legal opinions are going to be the same.
Yeah.
That's,
I would just want to say, I think we could debate this till we're blue in the face, and I would love to hear from Beth and from the administration.
Yeah.
Before we continue to debate this.
So I was only putting it.
Yeah, and that's why I just wanted to agree with what you were saying.
This is what I kind of caution about this whole saying, one way is political and the other way is not political. Because I don't think this construct gets you away from politicizing a board. This proposed construct.
Balance of power.
sense. Greatest one interested in the
Uh,
S-203 construct.
Casey, is that something you could ask for?
I could ask for Jay Johnson to come in.
Yeah.
That's,
That would be good. What's our schedule tomorrow looking like?
Each working for.
That's really.
Period.
all day?
Period, exclamation point.
Thanks, Josh.
Seemed funny when he.
Is that grammatically correct?
It's like you
Memorize the whole agenda.
There might be a lunch in there and adjourn somewhere.
It's just the
I
bill.
don't think you can adjourn tomorrow.
Okay, until floor, we have no other interruptions.
She said it's
And
the
you're
bill
excused
the
from
whole
the
day.
floor, so
Yeah.
at 1 o'clock, this is on your agenda, not the board.
Okay, so let's see if we can't make this happen. Casey, whatever you
Yeah.
can do. We'll have Beth in.
Sure.
It'll all come back to me from the previous time that this conversation came up. All right, does that bring us to the end of 35
let me
pages?
go back to sharing
If
my
we, if we
screen.
sort
Hold
of put
on.
that.
Do we
on
have
here. Second page.
anything in here? Oh, we do, okay, like just some of the resources that state, regardless of hard conversation we were just having, there is significant rules work that is overdue and new that we are asking for in here, so I'm jumping ahead to the
17.
appropriation part, the resources to do what we need.
Okay, so
But there-
I'm assuming that we're gonna be adding to this tomorrow, other stuff?
You mean the bill as a whole or a certain section?
Yeah, the bills, well, I don't know.
Yeah, we will.
Because there's more stuff to get in there, right?
14 more
Yeah.
sections.
What,
Oh,
what
wait.
are we adding?
Yeah.
I know, I think
Good,
it's,
I'd hate to be finished.
Well, you asked, okay, that took us through the 35 pages. I would just like to make a final plug-in.
oh, no, we're not, we aren't
Okay,
done going back.
okay, because on that, the very last page is the effective dates, and I would like to see a little bit of a reprieve.
Let's, go through here and
Okay.
then we'll pick areas to go back to.
Let me know.
Okay.
We'll start with
Let
that.
me know.
Section 17, on page 33, line 9. Is, requiring the State Board of Education to review each rule series the state board is responsible for. And make a determination as to the continuing need for appropriateness of or need for updating of said rules. And then on or before December 1st of 2026 this year, again, think about that date. The state board shall submit a written report to the House and Senate committees on education with its recommendation for rules that are no longer needed. And a plan to update rules that are still necessary, including the order in which the board proposes to update the rules and any associated costs or staffing needs. And then there's an appropriation from the general fund for this work.
But do you want to talk a little bit about this?
I think what I was just saying, I was quite compelled by our state board testimony earlier this year, and as we think about like capacity on all levels, sort of, you know, the big headline of much of this bill is about less, well, you know, we're consolidating, we're moving to more statewide systems cohesion, and that means we have to have statewide capacity to do all those things in the agency and including at the state board for these rules and do it well. And so, and I think, I'm unsure where things stand in the budget right now, but it clearly seems that we need to at least give them the sort of legal resources they need to do. And we are in this bill also contemplating more rulemaking, adding more of what we know is already a rulemaking backlog. So
The idea here, I think, is to,
pulling part of our budget letter essentially
Yeah,
and paring it down.
with the idea of being like having the state
Yeah.
board sunset.
Yep.
Kind of a bunch of stuff they're doing that they don't need to be doing. Figure out what is best handled by the AOE and then allow them to sort of focus on things they consider to be the things. Anybody?
Just for clarification, this is, we had this in our letter, but unfortunately that money got lost in the shuffle of things. So,
And it was more like, there were like three parts to it, because there was some that was BAA, there was some that was. So this is just short of picking numbers, that this is taking about a third to a half, somewhere in there, like, where they had detailed out a scope of work they need to do. And so this is paring that down and saying this is, we've got to do something here if we expect all these rulemaking things.
I think they need the money to go through the role and make sure it's something.
In the appropriations process, approach itself had reduced the ask to $200,000. I think it is important to have it in here. It will get taken out by appropriations as it goes through the process, with the thought that it will be fixed on the Senate side. Because they feel bad about having lost that 200,000. Okay. Apart from the state board language, let's go back and spend some time revisiting things. But I need a little bit of a reality check. We don't, other than school construction, which is actually kind of a big deal, we don't have outstanding language to put into this. And we just went through it all. I'm not saying we're done making decisions and discussion. But I'm feeling a little bit optimistic. Does anybody want to check my reality here that timing wise, at a minimum timing wise, we're looking like we're okay?
For 10 a.m. tomorrow, yeah.
Okay
Am I
to pass the bill by
completely
10
talking
a.m.
about this
No,
stuff?
I was kidding.
I do, but I'll-
No, I think that,
To have
I
this
don't
one.
think
I mean, we've almost left all of tomorrow to fight,
yeah. Right. So I don't,
and
think-
Friday.
I don't think you're, I think we're doing okay. We definitely have a lot of big decisions to make, which will eat up time.
Yes. Yeah. Janet?
Oh, these very big thought crossing my brain. No, I just was wondering, like, are we trying to sort of zero in on what we need to revisit and what we're feeling?
Yes, let's have that conversation right now. So, maybe we'll do a little round table around the table. Leanne, we know, so why don't you go first?
I have to go first, I mean, you know. I want really very much to write a bill that the governor will pass, that will pass in a bipartisan supportive way for public education. We worked so hard and it would be such a waste of time, not a waste of time, it would be such a disappointment to see that work not go anywhere. I suspect that we are going to get really hit hard with some pressure about certain parts of this bill over the next 24 hours. I suspect that there are people writing amendments right now for sections of the bills. And I just don't know if, as a person representing sort of the four most rural, I mean, you're also very rural, there are other very rural people that I don't know if I was sent here to support something that is gonna essentially close our schools without our consent. That is like, I don't know what to do.
Okay, so, the Articles of Agreement sunset area, you might want to come back and revisit. All we're doing right now is just sort of saying, I'd like to come back to this part.
Okay.
Yeah.
And maybe the effective dates, like, I wonder if we bought more time for that, if towns might feel differently or get more on board.
Okay, and, right now that effective date is
The,
July 1, 2025.
yeah,
Okay. All right. Hands, just look for, who else would like to suggest an area to go back and revisit? Chris,
Obviously the independent school section,
I thought we were all set there.
no,
The tuition, like where to pay tuition?
well, I'd like to talk more about the waiver again. I mean, if they're gonna have the same, if we're gonna start asking them to have equity and other things, they need an equitable waiver system to, I don't know where we landed on that.
Okay.
Beyond the addition back.
I'll have to take a look back at it.
We'll go back and.
Also the 51%, pretty much to me, the whole independent school section. And obviously, I know we're gonna revisit this new section that we just looked at this evening. Because there's still a lot of questions there. Those are two for sure.
Okay, thanks. Rob?
Yeah, kind of along those same lines, and I have to say this, I know that my constituency is gonna be looking for some sort of language that says, if, for example, there's page 58 here, they talk about where kids are gonna go to school, something along the lines of, our independent schools can continue to have the sending towns that they have, and otherwise, you know what they're thinking, right?
You refer to page 58, it's a 34-page bill.
No, in this, in the governor's, it says, in academic year 27-28, each student in the new union district will attend the school that the student residing in that town would have attended the previous year. So I think that, just some language that puts some people at ease saying, look, these are your sending towns before, they still get to be your sending towns. Anything of that nature that reassures, my constituency that, after a couple of years, the new district isn't gonna say, we're in Birchtown. We're sending these Londonderry kids over to Greenmount, we're sending these kids, so that's the reality, I think.
Can I ask
Go
a
ahead.
clarifying question about
Yes, of
that?
course.
I hear that. Is that, now I'm confused about sort of isn't that something that would get decided in our horrible to-dos next year. Of
Well,
if we actually come back with maps and we decide,
You know
and we
what?
have to charter the new districts.
Reasonable people would say yeah.
Yeah, okay.
But right now, there's a huge, you can actually hear it if you're quiet for a second, a huge panic south of here. And my house could be on fire right now. I don't know. Did I say that? So we left. I hope Nancy's out. Get out. Sorry, go ahead. That's all.
Okay,
Okay, I see what you're saying. Yeah.
so for tomorrow, if we
Wait,
could.
everything going around?
I'm saying that, I just want to follow with Rob. So for tomorrow, if, Beth, you might be able to be prepared to sort of put that language up on the screen.
I'm sorry, which language?
Page 58 of H454, is that correct?
Well, yeah, I'm just saying, like, there was a provision in there, it's just saying, because I remember one of the first questions we all had, were like, well, where are the kids gonna go to school? And here, it's just like, the kids next year will go to school where they always went to school, the feeding
Right.
things
So
that
this is a-
the
this is a
secretary
Current
said.
state, future state.
So the future state, the issue with the independent schools is they believe that if there's no provision in here to say that they get to continue with their own sending towns, that in 5 years, the new district could just choose to erase them. And they're very concerned about that.
So I don't know that we have any language that changes
Current session.
current process and procedure.
Just putting it out.
Now you know what I know.
Messenger.
Now you know what I know, right?
So
I'm
I'm,
going to keep my list here, to make sure Rob had anything else at this point. No. Okay, Josh, you're up.
so I'm also in agreement with Chris on, our Representative Taylor on,
After 5, we can be casual.
the independent schools, but also, the final section of the appointment of State Board of Education, because to me, like, that,
We'll get testimony on
well,
that.
but and that's seen through everything else, right? Because a lot of these things they're the ones doing these new things we're charging them with. And if that change happens, how does that make people feel about letting whatever the new makeup is do those things?
Ditto.
Yeah, that works.
Keep going. and
Yeah,
working on-
well, I was just gonna let people raise a hand, whoever was feeling like they wanted to make a suggestion. Emily?
I'll just say, there's a piece of data that I still don't know whether we can get, but I'd still like to have, and it may not be possible, but the 51%, I would really like to see current data, not
Have
data
you
from
put in a
23,
request with the
24.
AOE?
I've understood, I was told that the AOE doesn't have it. I don't know if that's actually true, so I didn't put the request in because I didn't think they did. I mean, they
Check with
gave us,
Lindsay.
I will, what I'd like to know is what it looks like now, and I don't. And so that piece of data would help me. Come back to me. I had something else and I just lost it.
Aaron?
Sort of along the lines of, your concerns for, and I'm just putting this out there, this isn't anything we're gonna be able to solve, but, your constituency is quite worried about a future state. As is mine, from the standpoint of, is the future foundation formula that's quite hypothetical, but is slowly taking shape in ways and means where we are not able to be right now because we're doing all of this, going to eviscerate my schools and lead people to, egg my house tonight. And so I think there's all of these, so some of my biggest concerns are about the finance piece this is gonna go there and then we're not gonna have, so I'm just putting out there, I have a concern of not knowing and understanding the interplay, one of some of our policies and, in my own community, a fear over the real financial impact. In terms of, so that's not something we can come back to and solve, but I would like to come back to the state board piece and in the interest of I've become very reluctantly an incrementalist. Are there incremental things? I think there's a lot of incremental things in this bill. If we could incrementally lower the temperature a little bit, and I think I agree, I'm not sure the construct put in here does that at all, but if there is a way to have an appointment structure that can be a little bit less susceptible to the political winds, and a little bit more stabilizing for our system. So I'm interested in coming back to that. And finally, I will say, you know, in its current form, I plan to support the bill, but it's with a pretty heavy heart and some fears on the 20 number that we've put on high school classes. I've mulled that a lot. Everybody's is making hard choices here as it stands right now. I think I could support most of the bill. I feel I have really huge concerns about that. That alone right now is not gonna get a cover.
That's a big one.
So I'm done.
Thank you.
Yep, yep. Shook my memory a little bit. Thank you, Erin. The state board, piece really is important to me to get more, feedback. That we're gonna do that. I also would like to take a look at a little bit of a different construct, and I pulled up the bill that was referenced here from last year. But I also want to consider a regional representation on there in some form, if that's possible. I'm not trying to complicate it, but I do think that even just mentioning it might help.
It is actually in the.
I didn't see it in ours, but, okay. Because
Because
currently it isn't. I mean, the current board doesn't represent all parts of the state in a way that I think would be really helpful for the state and for students. And then I'm going to say that I have expressed my thoughts about the Articles of Agreement piece that Representative Harple has brought up, and I'm still open-minded about making any shifts that I see both sides of this. I'm sitting and living and breathing this right now, and it's very painful, just like it has been expressed by others. I see both sides of it, but I look forward to having further conversation around that too. It's very concerning.
I was already called on you.
Did not, this time. I mean, this bill is what this bill is, and I have my reservations with it, like we know, but if we're talking about the specific bill, the state board one is an absolute no-go for me. And I would like to, I don't even know where I was at for the other parts of it. I think with our testimony today from the Secretary of State, hearing about how long this would push out if we didn't come up with some stuff this year, we waited till next year, the deadline would be 2028 for an election to new boards, which would push us out to school year 29-30, which would be a long time from now, which really has me concerning about the money aspect. One of the things that I answer to my constituents who are very upset with the property tax increase, and I keep coming back to it. I feel like that I just need to have that on the record that I am very concerned about pushing this down for another 5-6 years.
Others?
Since I was out of the room, I don't feel like it really adds to it.
It's a big pile.
But I think that's.
I think so.
In response to sort of the property tax point, I guess my understanding is that this wouldn't lower property taxes anyway. It would keep them the same or not growing faster. I mean, can someone help me to understand that?
This is a major topic of conversation. If you go with the governor's proposal, the funding formula is based on a future state
Right.
that one might debate whether it is a reality to be in place in the time that they want their funding formula in place.
Right.
So in other words, it's based on schools of 450.
Okay.
Well, in 3 years, based on their plan, will we have schools of 450? And if we don't, and that funding formula is in place, you're mostly just cutting back the amount of funding that a school district has. So, we're gonna, to Aaron's point about like, I don't even know what's going on with the foundation formula, which is really challenging. They're sort of looking at a current state
Yeah.
funding with a goal to get to, I think we call the evidence-based model.
Okay.
If we can actually get there frankly, from a physical point of view.
Well, I guess all of that was a setup for my follow-up question, which is that like, if that's kind of the ambiguity. Thank you, Amy, sorry, I swear I'm an English teacher. Then why does it matter if it's now or in 5 years? Like, I don't know why we're rushing it towards this arbitrary deadline.
I can answer.
Okay.
Right now, I believe school districts are doing everything they can to cut
Yeah.
and make cuts, and that's affecting staff morale, it's affecting the students. And I think the quicker we go, the better direction school boards and schools themselves will have. You know, we're signaling to them, and I think that the quicker that we can go, and I don't want to say like right this second, but the quicker we go, we'll send them, they'll be able to plan, set their mind at ease, and not consider making so many cuts that they're already making right now, because I don't want to hear that my school's cutting programs or cutting things for my students. I really think that this has, I believe, and I know we all have this in mind, that our kids are number one on our minds, and I feel like, just from my point of view, my argument to this is, if they're cutting now to maintain the response of, they wanted to pass budgets, then they're going to keep cutting and cutting to appease them. But what is that doing? So I think we all want the same goal. I would just say that to do it faster puts them at ease, even though it is going to be a little hectic at first. But I think
It's gonna.
I just want to say I appreciate everyone's input. So
I'm gonna just respond two ways to that. One, timing wise, if we were to draw the lines tomorrow, we still would not have done all of the awards and all of the things that we got explained to us today. I think it'd be highly unlikely that would all be in place by May 15th of next year, since it would be next year's legislature that would have to do it. So I think realistically, we're on a 29 operationalized schedule anyway, which frankly is also the schedule that the superintendents came through with. So, I mean, everybody knows where I am on this. You heard me say today in Caucus as a whole. I don't want to, as I say, go fast and break things. To the funding concept, Casey, I'm going to disagree with you a little bit and just say that the funding formula envisioned by the governor's proposal is based on a reality that does not exist in terms of every kid in an elementary school of 450. And to impose that funding formula without having made all of those efficiencies first, the way you save money is by taking money out of the system, the $187 million. It's also based on a 25 to 1 student teacher ratio.
Based on a statewide teacher contract.
My area means.
So
You have to have a lot.
in the, until we achieve those, that funding formula is probably going to be punitive to most districts, probably including yours, and where, Council will continue. I think that, what we will probably see out of Ways and Means is a start with the reality we're in, transfer to the reality that it envisions, but not doing it until we're there. So we can only be in a hurry to get there if we actually get there from a on the ground scale point of view. Yeah.
Can I add one more thing about the articles of agreement? Okay, I see your look, never mind. We're.
All right,
Go back to it tomorrow. Just, I guess my understanding, and like, Rep Brady said, I wasn't here during all of the Act 54, is it 54? Act 64 stuff, But was it, there was 46, thank you, sorry. We're past the time of my coherence.
Yeah.
We've been sitting here a long
Um,
time, Jane.
I guess my understanding was that in order to get towns to buy into that, there was sort of a promise, and I'm using the word promise loosely, but I wasn't there. That these articles of agreement, were going to be honored should this not work out. And now I'm feeling like an insurance company where we're like saying, we'll take all your money and now we're denying your claim. And like, that is really, troubling to me as well. I think that that's gonna breach some trust. And so there's that part of it too. It feels like we're kind of reneging on our word. I don't know what the question is.
Well,
Right,
and
right.
the topic at hand currently is what parts of the bill would you like to revisit tomorrow? Sorry.
Right.
I think she said articles.
And I don't want to be the big bad insurance people.
Janice?
I was gonna say, I'll jump on a couple of things that other folks have said, like, revisiting the State Board of Ed issue to see if there's any reasonable compromise we can find there. And then it sounds like we're going to revisit, the section around Section 10, tuition to approved independent schools. And I guess my really small hope, which maybe we won't get there, is I think it would be great if we could potentially come to consensus around stopping sending public dollars out of state, out of country. Like, to me personally, that feels like the very lowest hanging fruit, like in the current context. How can we possibly continue to justify that? Particularly when we know we're gonna allow the students who are currently there to graduate. So we're looking at an off ramp of X number of years. And kind of to Josh's point earlier, like, is the money that we used to send, Sweden or Thailand, is it the biggest part of our problem? It's not, but to really make good policy going forward, I feel like, how can we not fix such a basic problem?
I wonder if there's some way to help ensure our historic, whatever we call them,
Academies?
academies, that we are, that we're not, that they serve a purpose in our communities and they're important. My parents live in St. Johnsbury, my sister went to St. J Academy, like that's the school.
Yeah.
And it's been the school, and their parents went to that school, and the grandparents went to that school, and it's important to that community. And so I'm wondering if there's some little language we could put in to give them a little boost and a separation from what we are talking about when we say public dollars and private schools.
Josh.
To your point about measurements, correct? Around the sending money out of the state and country, I don't disagree. But I think that question around independent schools and all that, it is a bigger conversation. And we're right. And this is what we're doing today, is about setting us up for the conversations about governance and all the things moving forward. So I don't know, that to me, now isn't the time to do that. After we have a more robust conversation during the governance piece, maybe we can find some ways through for those who have different opinions, but that's just it.
On the floor right now, we're on H17, which is the Morristown Charter, but right after that.
Oh, no, I gotta go.
I know.
The exciting
The next one is the profession and occupations, the OPR.
Oh, yeah, that got moved to
might
the
be
end,
something that
so,
people
yeah.
want.
Is that our last one?
Yeah.
No, and then it's not like that I can't be here for.
Oh, no, and then it's gonna go back to
Oh,
copper.
it's like
prescribing.
PhD level.
Yeah.
I think I'd rather be here.
What's
Believe
that?
it or not.
Actually, I don't know that I'm gonna.
I'll walk
do
back
whole
into the
calendar.
cell.
I
I'm
am
not
actually
going out
gonna
there.
post it 3 weeks for a second.
I've been there.
Okay,
Been there.
So, we've gone around the table. I haven't had a chance to speak, and I'm very disappointed. Nobody brought up school construction.
I was thinking that, but I was
sad.
I was out of the room, so.
You already said it was
We
gonna
were
be
saving that
part.
one for you.
Thank you.
I was,
I thought you were
yeah.
gonna say PCBs.
I want to add,
Oh.
I want to add school construction to my list. You know how much that's
yeah.
That was
important.
already on our.
I just thought you might have mentioned it.
I thought it was a no. I thought that
Well,
was-
So-
okay.
Tomorrow, we can stay later if people feel like we can be productive. we've got the whole day tomorrow, other than when we need to be on the floor. We've been through the bill. We know what we want to go back and revisit. We're gonna need some time to review school construction again tomorrow. But if people are feeling okay about us closing out today, tomorrow, if needed, we're gonna make it a long one. I don't know. We are going to reach a point where we're gonna agree to disagree
Yeah.
on some things for sure. But we're doing good. Beth
I
first.
just, for me, after, because we did a lot today, I think going away and having some private think
Yep.
time and processing time would be more productive than staying here. So I agree, close out for the night.
Brady.
Could we start with school construction tomorrow?
Yes.
That seems like we need to.
Yeah.
I'm wondering, and maybe all of you experienced people can tell me, do you vote for a bill if you like most of it and can't stand one part because you know it should pass?
Events.
I'll have a
Or do you hold out for the thing that won't change out of?
This is more of a
Happy to
political
have that
conversation
conversation
you
with
have
you.
in the hallway
Okay.
with members of your leadership.
Okay.
Yes.
Personal.
Yes to that.
And it is a personal.
Very personal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's not an algebra. What did you guys, sorry, I missed that, what?
By the way, I want to stay later.
Okay.
All right, I'm nervous to do this,
Yeah.
but I'm gonna call an end to the day. We can go to the floor and enjoy the OPR bill and the other bill.
I'll be
The
more
floor is
productive
still
tomorrow.
going?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
We're gonna finish
Then what the
before
hell is
then.
Jay Hooper doing here?
Have you ever seen Jay on the floor?
I did.
One time.
Are we still recording?